Aaron's, born and raised in the area, and lived here in 1991 when we lost the houses in the fire.
What do you remember from that time?
Dealing with the changes put before us, and looking around and figuring out what we needed to do to rebuild our houses, our community, and that all coalesced in building the North Hills Phoenix Association. The leadership was very much a combination of people who had the time and people who had certain skills. It broke down into sort of general support people that could just be there and deal with the city, and then people that really had specialized skills that ended up working in Sacramento and being direct liaisons with certain aspects of the city, people that knew building codes or building, that sort of thing. And I fell into pretty much the generalist category. And I had done a lot of, we had just finished, how far back do I go in the story? We bought a 1907 farmhouse that was actually built out of salvage material from the San Francisco fire. And
The 1906 fire?
1906 fire. So our house was built in 1907, but we were opening up, it was a wreck when we bought it, and we would open up wallboard and find char marks on the inside of the boards. They had salvaged those. So we worked on that house for about a year, and we started moving in on Saturday, and it burned down on Sunday morning. So I had a fair amount of fairly current experience with dealing with the city and with dealing with codes and building techniques and engineering and architecture, so I at least understood the vocabulary. And I had the time, I was self-employed, and since I grew up in the neighborhood, I knew a lot of the neighbors in our immediate area. So I ended up sort of the de facto liaison with the city, and as every other neighborhood went through that same process, the 20 or 30 of us got together and ended up becoming the core of what became the Phoenix Association. I think it was largely word of mouth. Everybody in the neighborhood knew somebody, and we just put the word out that there's going to be a big meeting. Claremont Hotel offered us meeting space, which was great, and we had a meeting there, and people started talking, exchanging emails, exchanging phone numbers, exchanging just updated information. Here's where I'm staying, here's what I'm doing. The email was getting pretty well distributed at that point. Cell phones weren't. And that put a bit of a damper on things. I remember walking into the first meeting we had at the Claremont Hotel and looking around, and there was just this sea of brand new tennis shoes. Every single person in the room had brand new white tennis shoes on, and we're sort of the newly homeless was the joke at the time, except for we all had a support system and we all had credit cards. And word spread, people compiled lists. Some of it was phone tree, a lot of it was email, correspondence back and forth by fax, writing things up and faxing it out to people. Essentially there was 3,000 families that were suddenly thrown in a position where we have to understand all these things that we don't want to do, don't care about. You have to build a house, you have to deal with architecture, you have to deal with insurance, you have to deal with the city, you have to deal with all these variables that people didn't want to deal with, they didn't care about, they had no experience in, no passion for, and they just wanted their lives back. And those of us that were in more fortunate positions with experience and time could help do that. Well, I think that bringing structure and bringing information was really the goal. So each neighborhood put together enough of a group to have a representative, and those representatives met with the city, I think it was twice a month. So the city would have big briefings, and 20, 25 of us would go to those and bring questions and problems to the city, and the city would give us information and developments. We would fan back out and bring those back to our local neighborhood groups. And it was just an efficient way to to communicate between essentially mostly the city and the neighborhoods. You know, it's a funny area because and to me, the most crucial thing is to build a community. That's what makes an area livable. It makes it enticing. It also makes it safer. It makes it fire secure. It is community building. But this area attracts a socioeconomic strata that tend to be very independent. There are people that don't work in the community. They commute to San Francisco, they commute to San Jose, they commute to wherever, maybe different now than post-COVID. But they get up in the morning, they leave the area, they come home. It's more of a sanctuary mentality than a community mentality when they come home. And I think that's a big pitfall for the community. How you convince people to view their home in a different way, I don't know. You go through an experience like this and it sort of becomes obvious. You get stuck in your old individualistic ways and you're on your own, and some people that works out just fine. Or you find that there's value in working together. But I guess what I have found, and it reflects my sort of the values I was brought up with in a lot of ways, so it's my bias, is as we can work together, we're going to be stronger. We're going to work better as a community. We're going to get more out of the city and state governments. We're going to be happier, healthier, safer, just walking down the street. Whether that's crime and fire, or whether that's just having a sense of belonging in place.